I am sitting alone in our apartment right now. It is the exact moment my little brother is saying his vows. My phone keeps buzzing with messages from family members calling me selfish, heartless, and a terrible brother. But when I look over at Marcus, my husband still pale and weak on the couch after what happened, I know I made the right choice. Or did I? Would you skip your own brother's wedding to protect the person you love most? Before I share everything that led to this moment, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Now let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Ryan. I am 30 years old, and I grew up with my younger brother Derek in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. We were raised in a typical middle-class household where Sunday dinners were sacred and family always came first. At least, that is what I used to believe. Derek and I were inseparable growing up. Being 3 years older, I naturally fell into the role of his protector. When kids picked on him in elementary school, I was there. When he struggled with math in high school, I tutored him every night. Our parents loved us both, but I always noticed that Derek got a little extra attention. He was the baby of the family, and honestly, I never minded. I love my little brother more than anything. 7 years ago, my life changed completely when I met Marcus at a charity fundraiser downtown. He was volunteering at the same booth, and we spent the entire evening talking. There was something about him that felt like home. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and we have been married for 4 wonderful years now. What many people do not know about Marcus is that he was born with a congenital heart condition. He has undergone 2 major surgeries in his lifetime, and his doctors have always been very clear about one thing. Marcus must avoid extreme stress and sudden shocks to his system. His heart simply cannot handle it. When I first brought Marcus home to meet my family, things were awkward. My parents needed time to adjust, but eventually they came around. Or so I thought. 2 years ago, Derek introduced us to Tatiana at Thanksgiving dinner. She walked in like she owned the place, all smiles and confidence. Tatiana was undeniably beautiful, with sharp features and an infectious laugh. She worked in marketing and had this way of commanding every room she entered. My first impression was mixed. She seemed nice enough, but there was something about her that felt performative, like she was always playing to an audience. Derek was completely smitten, and I wanted to be happy for him. Then I learned about her hobby. Tatiana was a self-proclaimed prankster. She loved surprising people, catching them off guard and filming their reactions. At first, her pranks seemed harmless. She would hide Derek's car keys and watch him search frantically. She once switched the sugar with salt before my mom made her morning coffee. Everyone laughed it off. But then came the incident with my father. During a family barbecue that summer, Tatiana thought it would be hilarious to slip a laxative into my dad's iced tea. She recorded his face as he rushed to the bathroom again and again throughout the afternoon. My 60-year-old father spent hours humiliated in his own home while Tatiana giggled and showed the video to anyone who would watch. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged. "It is just a harmless joke," she said. "He will laugh about it later." He never did. And neither did I. That night, Marcus squeezed my hand under the dinner table and whispered, "I do not trust her sense of humor." I should have listened more carefully to that warning. Over the following months, I started noticing a pattern. Tatiana seemed particularly interested in pranking Marcus. It was subtle at first. She would sneak up behind him and scream. She once told him there was a spider on his shoulder and watched him panic. Each time I reminded her about his heart condition. Each time she apologized with that same dismissive tone. "I did not know it was that serious," she would say. The first truly frightening incident happened 6 months before the wedding. Marcus was at my parents' house waiting for me to finish up some work. He was alone in the living room when Tatiana burst through the door, screaming that the house was on fire. She was waving her arms, yelling for him to get out, and Marcus believed her. I got the call from my mother. Marcus had a minor cardiac episode. His heart rate spiked so severely that he had to sit down and practice breathing exercises for 20 minutes before he felt normal again. When I arrived, Tatiana was already laughing about how scared he looked. I pulled her aside. I kept my voice low but firm. Tatiana, Marcus has a serious heart condition. You cannot do things like this to him. It is genuinely dangerous. She rolled her eyes. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I am so sorry. It will not happen again. That night, I sat down with Derek. I explained everything. I told him about Marcus's medical history, about the doctor's warnings, about how terrified I was when I got that call. Derek's response crushed me. Bro, you are overreacting. Tatiana did not mean any harm. She is just playful. You need to lighten up. I stared at my little brother, the one I had protected his entire life, and I saw a stranger. He chose her side without hesitation. The distance between us started growing that night, and I did not know how to bridge it. 6 months before the wedding, Derek and Tatiana officially announced their engagement at a family gathering. Everyone cheered and cried, happy tears. Derek asked me to be his best man. And despite my reservations about Tatiana, I said yes. He was my brother. I loved him. Marcus was also invited to be part of the wedding party, and we both committed to making this celebration special. I wanted to believe things would be different. I wanted to trust that Tatiana would mature, that she would understand boundaries. I was wrong. The engagement party was held at a rented venue downtown. About 70 guests attended, including coworkers, extended family, and friends from college. Everything seemed perfect until Tatiana decided to pull one of her pranks. She had set up a fake cake. It looked beautiful from the outside, but inside was nothing but spring-loaded whipped cream designed to explode outward when someone tried to cut into it. The victim was one of Derek's college friends. When he leaned in to help cut the cake, the contraption went off. He stumbled backward, slipped on the cream that splattered the floor, and fell hard. He ended up with a bruised tailbone and had to leave the party early. Tatiana laughed so hard she could barely breathe. When people expressed concern, she waved them off. Everyone is so sensitive these days, she announced. It is just a joke. Nobody else was laughing. A month later, Tatiana hosted her bridal shower. I was not there, but Marcus's sister was, and she told us everything. Tatiana had planted realistic-looking fake spiders throughout the venue. One of the bridesmaids, a woman with severe arachnophobia, found one in her purse. She screamed, started hyperventilating, and eventually broke down, crying in the bathroom. Tatiana's response: she should have known they were fake. It is not my fault she cannot take a joke. I tried one more time to talk to Derek. I went to his apartment alone, sat him down, and spoke from the heart. Derek, I am worried. Tatiana's pranks are hurting people, really hurting them. What happens when something goes seriously wrong? My brother's face hardened. You have never liked her, Ryan. Not from day one. You are just looking for reasons to criticize her. That is not true. I am trying to protect this family. He stood up and walked to the door. I think you should leave. And maybe think about whether you really want to be my best man. I left without another word. When I got home, Marcus held me while I cried. I felt like I was losing my brother, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. My mother called later that week. She told me I needed to be more supportive. She said Derek was happy and that I should focus on being a good brother instead of causing drama. Nobody wanted to see what I was seeing. Or maybe they just did not want to look. Then came the rehearsal dinner. It was held at an upscale restaurant downtown. About 40 guests attended, including close family and the wedding party. The room was decorated beautifully with white flowers and golden candles. Marcus wore a new navy suit, and he looked healthy, happy even. I remember thinking that maybe I had been too paranoid. Maybe tonight would be fine. Dinner was served around 7:30. The conversation was warm, and even Tatiana seemed relaxed and pleasant. I started to let my guard down. Derek gave a toast, thanking everyone for their support. My parents looked proud. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Then the lights went out. At first, I thought it was a power outage. But then, I heard the screaming. A man in black clothing burst through the service entrance, waving what looked like a knife. He was shouting threats, knocking over chairs, and charging toward the head table. The room erupted into chaos. People screamed and ran in every direction. Someone knocked over a table. Glass shattered on the floor. In the darkness and confusion, I could not find Marcus. Then I heard him. Ryan. His voice was weak, strained. I pushed through the crowd until I found him standing near our table. His hand was pressed against his chest. His face had gone completely white. Marcus talked to me. What is happening? I cannot breathe. He collapsed. Right there in front of everyone, my husband crumpled to the ground. I dropped to my knees beside him, screaming for someone to call 911. Everything after that is a blur of flashing lights and paramedics and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. When the lights came back on, I looked up and saw Tatiana standing near the entrance. She was smiling. She was actually smiling, waiting for applause, waiting for everyone to laugh at her hilarious prank. She had hired an actor. The entire thing was staged. She had planned this as a fun surprise for the rehearsal dinner. She looked at Marcus on the floor, surrounded by paramedics, and her smile finally faded. It was supposed to be funny, she said. I could not speak. I could not even look at her. All I could do was hold Marcus's hand as they loaded him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the hospital. The ambulance ride felt like it lasted hours. I held Marcus's hand the entire time, watching the monitors, praying to anyone who would listen. When we arrived at the emergency room, they rushed him into a treatment area and made me wait outside. I sat in that cold plastic chair for what felt like eternity. A doctor finally came out around midnight. Marcus had experienced cardiac arrhythmia triggered by the sudden shock to his system. They said he was lucky. If his heart condition had been slightly more severe, things could have been much worse. He needed to stay for observation, at least 48 hours, possibly longer. I walked into his room and saw him lying there with wires attached to his chest and an IV drip in his arm. He looked so small in that hospital bed, so fragile. I pulled a chair next to him and held his hand. I did not sleep that night. Around 2 a.m, Derek showed up at the hospital. I thought he was coming to apologize to check on Marcus, to acknowledge the gravity of what had happened. Instead, he said Tatiana feels really terrible about this. She had no idea it would go this far. I stared at him. That is what you came here to say. She did not mean for this to happen. Ryan, it was an accident. An accident. She hired someone to pretend to attack us. She knew about Marcus's heart condition. How is that an accident? Derek shifted uncomfortably. Look, the wedding is tomorrow. Can we just move past this? I could not believe what I was hearing. My husband was lying in a hospital bed, and my brother was asking me to move past it for the sake of a party. I need you to leave, I said quietly. He left without another word. My mother called an hour later. She was crying, saying I needed to forgive Tatiana and show up for Derek. She said family was more important than holding grudges. Mom, did you even ask how Marcus is doing? Silence. Did you come to the hospital at all tonight? More silence. I have my answer then. Good night, Mom. I hung up and turned off my phone. Marcus was awake by then. He had heard everything. Whatever you decide, he said softly, I support you. Just know that. I sat there in the darkness, watching the monitors beep steadily, and I made my decision. The morning of the wedding arrived gray and overcast. Marcus had been discharged just a few hours earlier with strict instructions to rest. No stress, no excitement, no sudden movements. I stood in our bedroom looking at the best man suit hanging in the closet. I had picked it out months ago, excited to stand beside my brother on his special day. Now, it just looked like a costume for a role I could no longer play. My phone had been ringing nonstop since I turned it back on. Missed calls from Derek, from my mom, from my dad, from aunts and uncles and cousins. Everyone wanted to know if I was coming. Everyone had an opinion. I called Derek first. He answered on the second ring. "Ryan, please tell me you are on your way." "I am not coming, Derek." "What?" "You cannot do this to me. You are my best man. Your fiancée nearly killed my husband last night. She has never once sincerely apologized to him. Not once. And you are asking me to stand up there and smile like nothing happened. It was a prank that went wrong. She feels bad. What more do you want?" I want her to look Marcus in the eyes and say she is sorry. Has she done that? The silence on the other end told me everything. "That is my answer," I said. "I hope you have a beautiful wedding, Derek. I really do. But I cannot be there." I hung up before he could respond. My mother called next. She was hysterical, switching between anger and tears. She called me selfish. She called me spiteful. She said I was tearing the family apart. I let her finish. Then I asked one question. "Mom, did you visit Marcus in the hospital?" She stammered. Something about being busy with wedding preparations. "I have my answer about where your priorities are," I said. "I love you, Mom, but I will not apologize for protecting my husband." I turned off my phone after that. The rest of the day passed in a strange haze. Marcus and I stayed in our apartment. I made him soup and we watched old movies on the couch. Neither of us talked about the wedding, but it hung in the air between us like a ghost. Around 4 in the afternoon, I got a text from my friend Jordan. He was at the wedding. He sent me a photo of Derek and Tatiana at the altar. They were smiling. In the background, I could see the empty space where I should have been standing. My chest tightened, not from anger, but from grief. I was mourning the relationship I used to have with my brother, the easy friendship we shared as kids, the trust we built over decades. All of it felt broken now, and I did not know if it could ever be repaired. Marcus noticed me staring at the phone. He did not say anything. He just reached over and held my hand. I cried that night, not because I regretted my decision, but because sometimes doing the right thing still hurts. A week passed, then 2. The wedding was over, and the fallout was just beginning. My family had closed ranks around Derek and Tatiana. I received cold one-word responses when I reached out. Family group chats went silent whenever I tried to participate. I decided to write a letter, not to attack or accuse, but to explain. I sat down one evening and poured everything onto the page. I wrote about Tatiana's pranks, about the engagement party and the bridal shower, about every time I warned Derek and every time he dismissed my concerns. I wrote about Marcus's heart condition in medical terms, attaching copies of his doctor's notes so they could understand the severity. I ended the letter with a question. "If it was your spouse lying in that hospital bed, what would you do?" I sent it to my parents and Derek. Then I waited. My father was the first to respond. He called me 3 days later. His voice was quiet, almost broken. "Ryan, I read your letter. I read it 5 times. I did not understand how serious this was. I should have listened to you. I should have been there for Marcus. I am so sorry." It was the first time anyone in my family had truly acknowledged what happened. Dad drove to our apartment that weekend. He brought flowers for Marcus and sat with us for hours. He told us about his own regrets, how he had been so focused on the wedding and keeping the peace that he forgot what really mattered. He apologized again and again, and for the first time since the rehearsal dinner, I felt a tiny spark of hope. 2 weeks after the wedding, something unexpected happened. Someone at the rehearsal dinner had been recording when the lights went out. They captured everything: Tatiana laughing, Marcus collapsing, the chaos and the screaming. They posted it to social media, and it spread quickly through our family's social circles. Suddenly, everyone could see what I had been describing. They watched Tatiana stand there smiling, while my husband lay unconscious on the floor. They heard her say it was supposed to be funny. The comments came flooding in. From cousins, from family friends, from people who had dismissed my concerns for months. They finally understood. Tatiana never addressed the video publicly. She deleted her social media accounts and refused to discuss it. But the damage was done. People saw who she really was. The first few months after the wedding were brutal. I started seeing a therapist to work through everything. The betrayal by my family, the fear of losing Marcus, the guilt of missing my brother's wedding. It all tangled together in ways I could not sort out alone. Therapy taught me something important. I cannot control how other people react. I can only control my own choices and live with the consequences. I chose to protect Marcus. That was the right choice. Whether anyone else agreed was beyond my control. Marcus recovered well. His doctors were pleased with his progress, and within a few weeks, he was back to his normal self. We started taking short weekend trips together, just the two of us. We reconnected in ways we had not since before all this drama started. Jordan introduced me to a support group for people dealing with family estrangement. I thought it would be depressing, but it was actually healing. Hearing other people's stories helped me feel less alone. Some of them had been through far worse, and they were still standing. That gave me strength. My relationship with my parents slowly improved. My father became an unexpected ally. He started calling regularly just to check in. My mother took longer. She never directly apologized, but her tone softened over time. She started asking about Marcus. She started treating him like family again. 3 months after the wedding, Derek called me. It was the first time we had spoken since my decision. His voice sounded tired. "Hey, Ryan, do you have a minute?" I braced myself for another argument. "What is it? I need to talk." Without Tatiana around, I felt something shift in my chest. "Okay, I am listening." He told me things had been difficult. Tatiana's pranks had not stopped. She had embarrassed his coworkers at a company event. She had upset his friends at a birthday party. People were starting to avoid them. Derek was starting to see the pattern I had been pointing out for 2 years. "How did you know?" he asked me. "How did you see it when I could not?" "I did not know," I said honestly. "I just paid attention. I noticed how people felt after her pranks. I noticed that she never really apologized. I noticed the pattern even when I wished I was wrong." Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the words I had been waiting to hear. "I am sorry, Ryan. I should have listened to you. I should have believed you. I was so caught up in being in love that I ignored everything else. I forgave him, not because he deserved it, but because I needed to let go of that weight. Holding on to anger was only hurting me, but I also told him the truth. I forgive you, but what you do about your marriage is your decision. I cannot make that choice for you." We talked for almost 2 hours that night. When we hung up, something had shifted between us. We were not back to where we used to be, but we were moving in the right direction. As for Tatiana, she never apologized to me. She never apologized to Marcus. Part of me used to think I needed that apology to move on. But I have learned that closure does not always come from other people. Sometimes you have to create it yourself. I stopped waiting for Tatiana to acknowledge what she did. I stopped needing her validation or her remorse. My peace does not depend on her. Today, Marcus and I are happy. We are healthy. We are building a life together based on mutual respect and protection. My relationship with my parents has healed imperfectly but genuinely. Derek and I are slowly rebuilding our bond, one conversation at a time. Do I wish things had gone differently? Of course. I wish Tatiana had understood boundaries. I wish Derek had listened sooner. I wish I could have stood beside my brother on his wedding day without betraying my husband. But life does not give us perfect choices. Sometimes we have to decide between 2 painful options and live with the one that lets us sleep at night. So let me ask you, am I the one who was wrong for skipping my brother's wedding? I have made my peace with my decision. Whether you agree or not, I will always choose to protect Marcus, because that is what love means to me. Here is what I have learned through all of this. The people who truly love you will eventually understand your choices. They might need time, they might need space, but real love finds its way back. And the people who never understand, maybe they were never really in your corner to begin with. I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done in my situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you are not subscribed, yet join our community so you do not miss more stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of this journey with me. Whatever challenges you are facing in your own family, I hope you find the courage to protect what matters most. Take care of yourselves and the people you love. Until next time.